Welcome to Share Talk, the only podcast where investors come first.
Welcome to Share Talk. Today I'm speaking with Brian McMaster, who is the Executive Chairman of Harvest Minerals. How are you today?
Well, thanks, Stephen.
Right, first and foremost, could you give us a brief overview of your company, please?
Sure. Harvest is an AIM-listed company which specialises in fertilisers in Brazil, which is one of the world's largest fertiliser markets.
Could you discuss the market in that sort of area? Because it's not a sort of a mainstream sort of mining or mineral. And can you discuss the opportunity within that space there?
Yeah, sure. So Brazil is one of the world's largest consumers of fertilisers. In addition to that, Brazil imports almost all of its fertiliser use. The government of Brazil has publicly made comments that it requires the country to become fertiliser independent, which seems unlikely, but what it does speak to is the significance that the government is placing on fertilisers as part of the economy going forward. At the moment, it's anticipated that the majority of new agricultural land coming online in the Western world over the next 5 years will be in Brazil. So the market generally for agronomic products in Brazil is increasing rapidly, and accordingly the market for fertilisers is growing rapidly as well.
Could you just give us a small overview then on the sort of the farming aspect of the country? Because everyone thinks of Brazil as beaches and tourism.
Brazil is an incredibly large, incredibly diverse country. If you take a look at a map, you can see it straddles quite a lot of different latitudes. So it has a climate which is very varied from, tropical climate in the north all the way down through some arid desert areas to, a very Mediterranean and cooler climate in the south. So it has the capacity to grow crops of a varied variety. And at the moment, its number one export is soybeans.
Okay, so can you explain then the Arapua project and how that fits in with the sort of Brazilian strategy there?
Yeah, so Harvest Minerals has 4 different fertiliser-focused projects, and the one that we're focusing on in particular at the moment is called Arapua, as you mentioned. Arapua is what is known as a direct application natural fertiliser, which means it's a completely organic dig, screen and crush and deliver sort of process. So the process to extract the fertiliser and take it to the customer is really, really simple. There is a categorisation that has been developed by the Brazilian government called a remineraliser, and Harvest fits straight into the middle of the remineraliser category, which means we are one of the baseline contributors to the fertiliser regime that farmers need to implement every year.
So can you actually explain your product then, which is KPFertil, and what its sort of unique selling point is?
Well, yes. The unique selling point of our product is that it's a multi-nutrient fertiliser. So we, in one application, farmers are getting the benefit of potassium, phosphate, calcium, magnesium, and it's a slow-release fertiliser, which means that the nutrients are released to the plant over a longer period of time, which is beneficial for the growing cycle.
Okay, so that puts the nutrient and feeds the crop and the product, and obviously maintains the sort of soil balance, if you like, then.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a really important thing. I mean, one of the things that farmers have to do in Brazil every year is balance out the acidity of the soil. And part of what we do is our fertiliser provides a pH balance as well as vital nutrients.
Okay, so you've got the scenario, you've got the business model. Now, the thing that you're expecting later on this year is the certification and sales. That must be exciting, but what does this ultimately mean for you and the company going forwards?
Well, what it means is we've effectively done all the heavy lifting. So in terms of the traditional steps that people would expect a company like ours to go through, of all the exploration or the permitting or the licensing, the test work and all those sorts of things have all been done. And we anticipate releasing some of our final test results in the next couple of weeks. And then following that, we'll make an application for certification. Now, the application we believe will be accepted later this year, and that will give us the government stamp of approval to help us with our sales going forward. As you mentioned, we anticipate starting to sell some product prior to receiving that certification, and we're talking to potential customers as we speak. And, it really means that the business model has advanced to a stage where now the company is in a revenue generation phase, and we've moved away from being a mining company per se into a distributor of a product that the market wants to see.
So obviously you're looking at sales and certification later on this year. Why is now a good time to invest in the company?
Well, I think, in terms of all the things that people would look at to say, well, I won't invest because I'm worried about the risks of things going wrong. We sit here today with a project that is substantially de-risked. I think the couple of obvious hurdles that we need to jump, all the things that we need to do to get over those hurdles, we know how to do them. We're in the process of doing them, and literally, the train is about to leave the station, one would suspect.
Okay. Now, if you could just highlight the sort of geopolitical risk of working in Brazil, because it's not a mainstream sort of mining or minerals country per se. So could you just highlight what the risks are potentially?
Yeah, so we've been in Brazil in different guises for about a dozen years now. We've done several projects down there in the past, all of which have been successful. We find Brazil to be an incredibly friendly environment to work in. Funnily enough, our project is in a state called Minas Gerais, which literally translated means mining state. The government down there is very receptive to investment and very receptive to mining investment. The things we read about in the press regarding corruption scandals and those sorts of things are very isolated to the top end of town. At the day-to-day level where we operate, there is no such issues. Brazil is super friendly, super productive, and really is, in terms of specifically around agriculture, it's one of the hotspots of the world to be in. It's one of the most advanced agronomic economies in the world, and as I said earlier, one of the largest utilisers of fertiliser. So, frankly, we wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Okay. Would you like to give us a closing statement there, Brian, please?
Well, I think, in terms of closing and summing it all up, we feel really confident about the future for Harvest. I mean, we are on the cusp of generating revenue. We don't have any large expenditure items coming down the pipeline. So, assuming that things go according to our anticipated plan, we should have a profitable company going forward, which will ultimately mean dividends for shareholders and improved shareholder value.
And that's something that we will look forward to talking with you in the near future. Brian, been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and hearing about Harvest Minerals.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website for more news and other podcasts at www.share-talk.com.